wasn't just a doll. Welcome to the world of fear. This story might change the way you sleep forever. The Bloodstained Doll, Secrets of the Haunted Farmhouse. Episode 1, The Silent Path to the Farmhouse. Corinne, Susie, and Emily were three close friends who decided to take a break from city life. They found an abandoned farmhouse deep inside the woods listed on a rental site. It was far from any town, surrounded by dense trees with no neighbors in sight. As they drove down the narrow dirt road, the air grew heavier and colder even though it was summer. The sky darkened as they reached the gates. Crows flew off the rooftop, and the wind whispered between the trees. Perfect place to relax, right? Corinne joked. Susie laughed nervously. Yeah, as long as nothing creepy happens. But something was already watching them from the attic window. Episode 2, The Old Trunk in the Attic. The next morning, they explored the house. The attic was filled with dust, cobwebs, and forgotten memories. In one dark corner, Emily spotted an old wooden trunk. Inside lay a single porcelain doll, its dress tattered. An eye cracked and dried reddish stains around its mouth and hands. Looks like something from a cursed movie, Corinne muttered. Susie, oddly drawn to it, picked it up. It's cute, just old and misunderstood. The air around them turned cold. A shadow moved behind them, but when they turned, nothing was there. Episode 3, The First Sleep, The First Dream. That night, Susie was the first to fall asleep. Within minutes, she began to toss and turn. She dreamt of the attic again, only this time. The doll stood on its own, walking toward her. In a childlike, raspy whisper, it said, "You woke me up now, you'll never sleep again." Susie screamed herself awake, her face pale with terror. But the worst part, the doll was now sitting on her bedside table. Had left it in the attic. Episode 4, Blood on the Wall. The next morning, Emily noticed smudges on the hallway wall. Words were faintly written, smeared like old blood. Sleep and die. Corinne tried to laugh it off, thought it's probably just rust or mold. But when Emily touched it, it was warm, freshly drawn. And from that point on, none of them could sleep peacefully again. Episode 5, The Past Revealed. In the basement, Corinne found an old file box filled with documents and rotting paper. Among them was a yellow newspaper clipping. 1993 to 7-year-old girl found dead in Forest Farmhouse. Mysterious doll covered in blood found next to body, no suspect identified. The image in the article showed the same doll now sitting in their bedroom. Episode 6, The Graveyard in the Dream. At night, Emily dreamt of a foggy graveyard filled with tiny headstones. The doll held her hand, leading her to one grave. "You need to bury me, or I'll bury you in your sleep," it whispered. When she woke up, her hands were covered in dirt, and under her nails, dried soil. Episode 7, The Doll Walks. They locked the doll in a storage room. Corinne even installed a camera. The next morning, they played the footage. The doll stood up, turned its head toward the camera, then vanished from the frame. When they opened the room, the doll was gone. It was back in the attic. Episode 8, Death in Her Sleep. Susie gave up fighting. "If she wants me, she can have me," she muttered. That night, she fell asleep and never woke up. Her eyes were wide open, filled with horror. Her throat had deep scratches, as if clawed by tiny fingers. The doll was sitting on her chest, smiling. Episode 9, One Down. Corinne and Emily tried calling the police, but the signal was dead. Emily's phone lit up with a message they didn't type. "One down, two to go." They tried to leave, but the doors wouldn't open. Something was keeping them in. Episode 10, The Fire Ritual. Desperate, they decided to burn the doll. They doused it in kerosene, lit the match, and tossed it in the fireplace. The flames roared, then turned blue. Piercing scream echoed through the room, the voice of a little girl in agony. The fire went out. Corinne's hand had burn marks in the shape of tiny fingers. Episode 11, The Forest That Moves. They escaped the house and ran into the forest, but the woods seemed to shift. Every path led them back to the same place. Trees grew thicker, darker. Finally, they stumbled into an old cemetery, the same one from Emily's dream. Episode 12, Luna's Grave. Uncrooked headstone caught their eyes. It read, "Luna died in sleep, 1993. Emily gasped, "That's her. That's the girl. We have to bury the doll here." They dug into the earth and found a rotted box, inside bones. And the doll. Next to it, Susie's necklace. Episode 13, Blood Offering. Emily picked up the doll, but it twisted in her hands. Blade slid from its chest, cutting her palm. The doll said, "Your blood wakes me. Your blood keeps me alive." Emily, in a final act, sliced her wrist and poured her blood on the doll. It screamed and fell silent. Episode 14, Alone Again. Corinne buried Emily and the doll deep into Luna's grave. She returned to the city, traumatized. The farmhouse was sealed. The deaths were ruled unknown causes. But Corinne knew what really happened, and she never spoke of it again. Episode 15, The Final Sleep. A week later, Corinne tried to sleep peacefully for the first time. Her room was quiet. The lights were off. But then, her bedroom door creaked open. Cold wind blew in. She opened her eyes and saw the doll sitting beside her pillow. "Did you miss me?" it whispered. "Sleep tight."